Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's a health and safety, and of course, a fellow podcaster, as well as an author and the author of the book Beyond the Incident. None other than Mr. Desai Link.
Hello, Daniel. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Hello, Mr. Desai, and thank you so much
Thank
again
you.
for another great episode on Book 101 Review. Can you tell more about yourself that I miss?
Sure. A bit of a recap on me and where I come from.
Yes.
I was born in Western Australia. I studied law, and while I was studying law, I was operating forklifts to pay my way through that. When I eventually got admitted to the bar in Western Australia, I found that law wasn't really for me. Went back to driving forklifts and found that my skills could be better applied in the realm of health and safety or workplace health and safety. So I've been doing that for 15 years now, and I've been able to take some of those lessons that I learned from law and apply them to health and safety, which gave me the idea for the book.
Interesting indeed, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Desire. Thank you for sharing your expertise to the world. The title of the book, Beyond the Incident. What is the most common mistake investigators make by focusing only on the incident itself? And what is the crucial layer of reality do they miss?
The most common error that I see made is where people rest the investigation at the point where someone made a mistake and then they assign blame or some form of accountability to that person. And whenever that happens, it's a missed opportunity because if you dig deeper and find out why the person did what they did, you can often find some pretty surprising things. Uh, and and that's really where learning starts to happen for an organization, and where some real benefit can come out of what is initially a negative situation.
Interesting, Mr. Desai, and tell us. The book seems to sit at the intersection of legal theory and frontline HR practice. What has the most significant gap you observe between the two worlds that inspired you to write this book?
Well, I've noticed when safety professionals attend investigation courses, or at least when I attended the ones I did, there was a lot of emphasis on gathering all the evidence, and most of that was documented evidence. So we'd be looking for workplace documents, procedures, risk assessments, a whole range of different things, and we take them at face value. And when we actually talk to a witness, it's a very simple process: ask open questions, avoid leading questions, and there's nothing wrong with that approach. It's just not, it's very superficial, and that's my problem with it. And law takes a very different approach. Documents are not taken at face value. They need to be supported by a witness, as they need to be supported by oral evidence. And when it comes to interviewing a witness and obtaining that oral evidence, there's a lot more than just simply asking open questions and avoiding leading questions. There's a whole range of questioning techniques that can be used to test evidence, to help weigh evidence, and to help validate evidence.
Does the evidence? So, Mr. Desai, you mentioned legal caution is the subtitle. How does the legal definition and pursuit of causation differ from a typical corporate root cause analysis? And why is the distinction critical for defensible investigation?
It's a very good question, and I think the gap comes from investigation techniques that are currently used in health and safety are born out of engineering, and they look at how processes perspective. You know, one pipe failed, therefore causing the pressure to rise too much, therefore causing an incident. They're quite linear and a little bit limited if you can find yourself to a single model, a single methodology for doing it. Legal causation, on the other hand, seems to have been ignored by the safety fraternity, but it is designed by its very nature to deal with novel situations. Each time legal causation is developed, it's developed because a new set of circumstances have arisen that haven't been considered before. And so that legal causation is adjusted and refined and bettered as a result. So legal causation is things like, you know, if someone's negligent, it helps to trace back in what way or how culpable they are, how responsible they are for causing the harm if they were negligent. Was there contributory negligence? Did the party that was harmed also contribute to the harm? And I've taken those things and other legal principles and turned them into something that can be used in a health and safety investigation.
Mr. Desai, if you had to recommend on one practical tool or framework from your book that consistently transform an investigation for a good to great, what would it be and why?
I think it would be placing a lot more emphasis on oral evidence, which is the interviewing of a witness. And we talk about leading questions, open questions. Yes, there's a time and place for each of those. But sometimes the best way to interview someone is to not even ask a question at all. It's just to say, please tell me your story. Please tell me the story of what happened. And when you just sit back and listen and let that person speak in their own words and in their own time, you tend to get a much fuller, much more helpful picture of what happened. And from that, you can develop some learnings that can really help the organization.
Mr. Desai, tell us, assessing witness credibility is often more art than science. What is a tangible, defensible technique you provide for moving beyond a gut feeling into a structured assessment of credibility?
It is a very problematic area because someone might be lacking credibility, but not because they're intentionally lying. It might just be because their memory isn't good or because they're having a traumatic response to whatever they've seen. So, a good way to test that is to ask them questions which you can later go back and validate. So, say if the incident occurred in a room, you can say, "Well, tell me what furniture was in the room. What did you see?" And if they saw some chairs, you could ask further and say, "What kind of chairs and how were they positioned and what color were they? You know, were they fabric chairs? Were they plastic chairs? Was it a couch?" Someone who has a good recollection of events should be able to answer those questions quite easily, and you can go back and verify it. And if there's a gap in the way that they're answering questions, you know that there's a gap in their memory. And if there's a gap in the validation of it, you know how to weigh that evidence.
Evidence, evidence indeed. And Mr. Desai, can you walk us through the anatomy of a truly effective investigation interview? What's one phase of technique that is the most often overlooked but yields the highest return?
Well, for me, one really practical thing you can do is focus on the comfort of the witness. When people are told they're being interviewed for an investigation, that can be quite a daunting thing to have to face, and it might cause the person to sort of close up and be very careful with what they say. And we want people to be conscious and say the truth and in their own words, but we want them to do that in a comfortable, open manner. So witness comfort is a big deal, and if an organization were to implement one particular tool from the book, that could be it. That would yield some pretty good results, and it's one that's often overlooked. Now, witness comfort is something that you need to monitor on an ongoing basis. Everyone is a little bit different in how they exhibit their comfort. Most of the time, their body language is what will tell you. So having some understanding of body language, signs, and gestures, that can really help to assess whether the person you're speaking to is actually comfortable or not.
Interesting, Mr. Desai. Investigators often gather facts, interview notes, and document in a disjointed way. What is your systemic approach for weaving these disparate threads into coherent and logical narrative?
The method that's worked the best for me, which I advocate for in the book, is setting out all of the evidence which has been weighted and verified as much as possible into a chronological timeline of events. Everything that's in that timeline of events will be linked directly to evidence. So there's nothing in there that could be considered opinion or a judgment or a speculative statement. It's all stuff that you've been able to verify. Now, organizing it in that manner should tell you a bit of a story, and it's from organizing it in that manner that you can actually do a robust analysis of causation and contribution to understand what can be done to prevent a similar accident from occurring.
Mr. Desai, on legal causation and defensibility, how can an investigator practically apply the legal but for tasks in a complex workplace harassment case?
Yeah, harassment's a unique one because most of the time you're just relying on the word of the two witnesses working against each other. Um, there's a lot of questioning techniques that can help to ascertain who might be telling the truth, who might be using language that's a bit more inflammatory, who might be using language that's a bit more factual. And you can use that to help weigh the evidence in a fair manner. I think trying your hardest to be fair while also recognizing that any investigation and any investigator will be biased to some extent is important. The idea that an investigator is completely objective is a bit of a self deception. So it's following a process of validating evidence and making sure that um, is robust. And then also, um, sorry, I've lost my train of thought there.
No worries at all, no worries. Take your time, Mr. Desai. If you want, let's go to the next question. So
Sure.
tell us, from a legal standpoint, what is the single most important element or an investigator's final report must demonstrate to withstand scrutiny in a deposition or courtroom?
I think it's honestly recognizing the limitations of the investigation. So, working within the context of a workplace safety investigation, you don't always have access to witnesses as much as you would like. You don't always have all of the time in the world to conduct the investigation and gather the evidence. So, representing the limitations of the investigation is very important, and that needs to happen both during the investigation and in the final report. And I think that really will help the investigation stand up to scrutiny, especially legal scrutiny, because you've you've been open and honest about your ability to obtain information and validate it and make recommendations on that basis.
Mr. Desai, as an author, what are your short term and long term goals?
I'm really hoping that the book can help contribute to better investigations in workplace health and safety. There's a bit of a problem there at the moment, I think. Apart from the gap that I've seen between law and health and safety investigations, I just see safety investigations becoming a bit of a bureaucratic exercise. People are just going through the motions without really digging deep and giving it the credit that it deserves, the attention that it deserves. So I'd really like to see that change, and I think that change isn't as onerous as it sounds. It actually just means introducing a few techniques which can jumpstart that process and get some real interesting, um, meaningful findings.
Meaningful finding for sure, and good luck to your goals, Mr. Desai, and looking forward for more success. What will be a piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
I would say that take control of your own career. One of the best things I ever did was not wait for somebody else to put me on a training or recommend something or recommend a book or um, not wait for my employer, for instance, to come and put me on the training course and move me up into the next tier of management. I've always done that myself. So certainly, if your employer does come to you and offers that to you, take it, but don't wait for them. Go out, take some annual leave, pay for the course yourself, pay for the study, be curious about what you do for a living, and develop your skills constantly. Investigations are a great example because you can soon, very quickly, grow stale as an investigator if you don't do investigations on a regular basis. And also, if you're not expanding your skill set when it comes to investigations. So, you'd want to be testing your questioning abilities alongside actually performing investigations on a regular basis to keep your skill level as high as possible.
Thank you for that advice, Mr. Desai. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Absolutely. There's an author called Greg Smith, who's the author of Paper Safe and another follow up book called Proving Safety, both of which are available on Amazon. And he's a West Australian lawyer also who has a deep interest in health and safety. And his book influences a lot of the things that I talk about in my book.
Well, thank you for that recommended book, Mr. Desai. So, on impact and investigators' journey, what is a recurring aha moment that professionals have when they start applying the principles from your book?
I don't think I heard your question correctly. Would you mind repeating that?
Yes, definitely. What is the recurring aha moment that professionals have when they start applying the principles from your book?
I think it might be the discovery of something that they didn't ever think that they would find. And I think that's the beauty of a good investigation is you will uncover things that weren't at first apparent to anyone, but because of your hard work and because of applying these tools and techniques, you've you discover something that is a genuine learning and can result in some meaningful change. There's plenty of examples in the book of that I provide where that's happened. I think in the other show I shared the story about the carpenter
Mm.
who cut their thumb. There's been other instances where we've had a food safety incident involving moldy sausage, which sounds kind of comical, but if you have a food poisoning event, especially on a project like where I was working, that's actually a really significant safety incident. It can put a lot of people into the sick bay for a long time, and the project can be pretty much stalled completely as a result. So it is actually a serious incident. And by going through the technique and being able to rule out any possibility of that moldy sausage originating from the kitchens, we were able to determine that the only remaining logical explanation by inference is that someone brought the sausage into the kitchen and placed it in the service tray, which was interesting because the contract for the food supply was up for negotiation at the time, and that was worth many millions of dollars. So it could be an instance of commercial sabotage.
Okay, Mr. Desai, tell us, based on your experience, what is the most pervasive and dangerous blind spot that even experienced workplace investigators have?
That's a very good question. A few things come to mind, but probably the most striking for me has been that some investigation methodologies that are used in safety have a series of predefined root cause categories, which the investigation you will lead you down a path to get to that root cause category. I think that that's a bit of a problem. I don't think it's helpful. I think it's important to be aware that there are some categories of root causes that exist. But I think stopping your investigation at that point and limiting your investigation to those things is not helpful and can cause you to stop short of actually affecting some meaningful change. An example of that might be that the training was inadequate as a root cause. Sounds reasonable, but to stop it there, you kind of miss the opportunity to ask, well, why was it inadequate? Was it not long enough? Was the facilitator terrible? Was the provider terrible? Was the course material bad? Was the person who was attending the training fatigued that day and they couldn't pay attention? There's any number of reasons why that might have been, but stopping at that point is really doing the organization a bit of a disservice.
Mr. Desai, how can a legally sound, causation focused investigation provide more than just a compliance? How can it deliver genuine strategic insight to the organization's leadership?
Sure. So, to follow on from my last point about ending on predetermined root causes, if you don't do that, you need a logical point to end the investigation. Otherwise, you just keep going and going to the point of absurdity. And what I propose in the book is ending the investigation at the point of the organization's sphere of influence. And what I mean by that is that at the edge of the organization's ability to influence things, there's a point at which they can exercise direct control over fixing something and then indirect control over fixing something. And I propose that the organization do both. And what I've found from that is that not only does the organization make changes within its own sphere of influence, but it can also influence the industry, it can influence the regulator, and it can influence other bodies that are external to make changes also. And I think that there's some real value in that. There's also another aspect of value in the sense of using these tools and techniques, which are built for investigations, but really can be used for interrogating reports within an organization. So if you sit on a board, the questioning techniques, the evidence validation and weighting techniques can really help in questioning a report that's been presented. Are the claims that are being made in the reports substantiated? Who can I interrogate in order to find out more about it? And what questioning techniques can I use to find out more about this information in this report? So I think it's got great value for board members. It's also got great value for people that report to boards. So it's just, yeah, the book really is a collection of tools and techniques that can be applied across an organization.
And truly, truly helpful for everyone. And Mr. Desai, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my Food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season. ML Baby Podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101 and Bible Verses 101. Love Letters in fourth season, as well as my Movie 101 review, Music 101, and my Science 101 and Sex 101 in its second season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Desai, if every workplace investigator in the country internalized the lesson from beyond the incident, what is the one biggest change we would see in organizational health?
I think we would see investigations shift from being a bureaucratic exercise into something that really delivers some meaning for an organization. I think that's the
It,
biggest change.
well, Mr. Desai Link, thank you so much for sharing your book to the world. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your debut book, Beyond the Incident?
Thanks very much. It's been a great pleasure to be here. And yeah, if you're interested in the book, please do a search on Amazon for Desai Link Beyond the Incident. That should be pretty easy to find. And also, you can hit me up on LinkedIn if you want to connect and talk about investigations and talk about health and safety. Feel free to reach out.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Desai Lang because if you support him, for sure more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Desai, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.